Well, hello and welcome to another video by Financial Learning. On today's video, we're going to be talking about the Bitcoin mining sector. We are going to cover the sector news for the week. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail than I usually do because this video will not include the short score rankings. So if you're interested in that, drop a comment. I will be looking to add that later on this week if I am able to. So without further ado, let's get right into it. The first company we're going to cover is going to be Cango. They had news come out back on September 2nd, and it was their monthly mining update. So let's take a little bit of a deep dive into that. You can see for the month of August, they did mine a total of 663.7 Bitcoin. The average amount of Bitcoin per day was 21.41, and their hash rate deployed is at 50 exahash. So we already know Cango, CleanSpark, Iron, and also Mara are all at or above 50 exahash. So it is good to see another company competing with some of the top companies. Cango is somewhat of a newer company. They did make that pivot a few months ago. So on top of that, let's take a look. They do have an operating average hash rate of 43.74. So it is pretty much in line with CleanSpark and some of the other companies in this sector that did have some curtailment on the month due to some of the additional power demand due to the hot months here in the summer. Now, on top of that, there was a few other things to note. Let's look at this specific quote from the CEO of Cango. He said, with our new 50 exahash deployed, capacity now fully operational since July, our average operating hash rate has increased by 6.9% month over month. We also are pleased to share that we mined 663 Bitcoin this month, propelling our Bitcoin treasury past 5,000 Bitcoin. So that's a huge accomplishment by Cango, getting their Bitcoin treasury up to that 5,000 amount. Now, there are still quite a few companies that have more, but with them having these very nice large daily Bitcoin mining amounts, they will be able to continue stacking Bitcoin month over month and growing that hodl. On top of that, they did also mention that this achievement powerfully validates our strategy and strengthens our foundation for sustainable growth. Meanwhile, we have committed ramping up our core mining operations through targeted initiatives to boost fleet efficiency. So again, we do know that they had a pretty high cost to mine Bitcoin. So it is great to see that they are going to be looking to get some more efficient miners added to this specific fleet. So yes, although they did hit 50 exahash, quite a bit of that hash rate that's online is less efficient, which means it is costing them more per Bitcoin to mine. So be on the lookout for Cango as they continue improving on their fleet efficiency month over month. All right, and sticking with Cango, the next press release was their quarterly earnings, and this is going to be for the quarter ending in June. I want to share a couple updates with you based off of this, but I will have the full press release in the description as a hyperlink. So if you want to click on that and read through the whole thing, definitely take a look at that. I do get all of my press releases from bitcoinminingstock.io. So definitely give them a look if you've never heard of them. They are an excellent source for anyone invested in the Bitcoin mining sector. So, starting with the first update from Cango, I want to talk about their mining capacity expansion. So, they did mention that they did hit that 50 exahash back in June, and that is attributed to adding an additional 18 exahash in that same month. So, they had a massive month of June in terms of additional hash coming online. Now, we do know based off the last press release, some of this hash was a little bit less efficient. We'll get into that in just a minute. But moving down, the next of which is going to be a way they were able to get some additional cash flow without having to use shareholder equity. And that was through a China divestiture. So they did end up selling a pretty significant amount of their Chinese assets, a total of 352 million worth, and that did help boost their liquidity for the future. So they will have the optionality to purchase some more efficient miners, also expand into the US. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then they do have plans to start looking at HPC AI. And we'll talk about that again in just a second. The next item to talk about is going to be their revenue growth. They had a significant increase on revenue. For the quarter, it came in at $139.8 million. And of that, 99% of it was Bitcoin mining revenue at 138.1 million. The next item to talk about is going to be their Bitcoin production and costs. They did produce a total of 1,404 Bitcoin in Q2, and the cost in terms of energy of that Bitcoin was $83,091. They do note that their overall all in cost to mine the Bitcoin came in at $98,636 per Bitcoin. Pretty high in terms of mining Bitcoin for energy, so they must have pretty low depreciation. You'll have to take a look at their earnings in more detail. Again, as I mentioned, I have the link in the description. But that does show a pretty high cost of energy. So I will be interested to see just how they continue to scale more efficient miners to replace some of these energy suckers, if you will. Now, the next line item to talk about is going to be their adjusted EBITDA. They did see a surge of adjusted EBITDA at $99.1 million, and that is up significantly from just a year ago. And then one item that was not so pretty on their earnings was their net loss. They did record a net loss of negative $295.4 million. So, again, not so great. You did see that cost to mine the Bitcoin was pretty high for the quarter. But looking at some of their other line items, you can see strategic US expansion. I think this is going to be excellent for the company. They are in the state of Georgia now with a 50 megawatt mining facility, and they do plan on improving on their fleet efficiency as well as positioning themselves for HPC and energy infrastructure projects. Now, this update was from their August news, but they went ahead and shared it with investors on this quarterly earnings update. And then they did provide some additional forward guidance in three phases. The first phase is a near term phase where they do plan to optimize that 50 exahash, specifically in the state of Georgia, where they have a low cost model. They will be replicating this across their other data centers. The mid-term phase is going to be piloting a renewable storage project as well as retrofitting some of their facilities for HPC. So I think this is pretty interesting and it goes along with their long term phase, and that is going to be building out a dynamic computing platform which has a blend of Bitcoin mining, HPC AI, and also green energy trading. So I think that last item is pretty interesting. They did talk a little bit about how they're going to be using renewable storage projects. It sounds like they are going to find ways in order to monetize that excess energy. So this entire sector, all of these companies, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's HPC compute, or whether it's actual energy generation, they're all looking to monetize that power. So I find this very fascinating. So that's it for Cango. We'll move on to the next. All right, and the next press release is going to be from Hive Digital. A couple of key highlights from this press release, starting with another milestone on hash rate, is going to be they've hit 18 exahash and they've completed their phase two at that Yigazu site ahead of schedule, surpassing that 18 exahash goal. And they're currently mining 8.5 Bitcoin per day. Now, the next update is going to be for their 200 megawatt hydropower facility at this Yugazu site. It's fully operational with this 200 megawatt, and it is hydroelectric power, so it is a much cheaper cost of electricity than just using natural gas or oil. And the next portion of that is the fact that they announced the efficiency at this site is sitting at 18.5 joules per terahash. So again, it is going to be very profitable mining Bitcoin down there at the Yigazu site. And the third update is for their phase three Valenzuela progress. And they did announce that they do have transformers energized at that 100 megawatt site. And they are currently installing ASICs, which have begun as of this past week. And the construction is substantially complete. So it'll be interesting to see how much of the hash rate gets put online in the next few weeks. Now, the next update is their path to 25 exahash by Thanksgiving. We are getting pretty close to that middle to end of November period. So here is what they had to say about that. They said once that Valenzuela site is complete, Hive projects to hit that 25 exahash producing about 12 Bitcoin per day. And that's going to represent about 3% of the global Bitcoin network. And that is in terms of hash rate. The next update has to do with how they are utilizing their cash. They did note that their capital is fully deployed in terms of those ASIC miners. The purchases for phase 2 and phase 3 are funded and paid for and shipped with installations already underway. So it is good to know that they have all of the equity needed in order to be able to hit this 25 exahash. Now, on top of all of that, they also mentioned that this will keep them on plan for their 2025 CapEx budget. And the next thing to note is going to be their cost structure advantage. They did note that this specific hydroelectric site does have fixed rate, which means that all of their current labor costs will remain consistent as they continue to scale up their business there. So again, they're not going to have to hire any additional personnel, and they're not going to have to do anything else really in terms of repairs or anything of that nature. Just need to continue adding ASICs to this fixed rate site. Now, there's two more updates, the next of which is a dual business model. So Hive continues two main strategies, the first of which is their Bitcoin mining. And they've already talked about how they're scaling hash and putting out more and more of the Bitcoin per day. And then the other arm of their two-phase approach is going to be their HPC AI cloud computing. So they have diversified their revenue, not just looking at Bitcoin anymore, but also looking at the HPC AI side of this business. The last of the updates is that their management's focus is aligned. So they did note that capital efficiency, low general and administrative costs, as well as a resilient infrastructure positions Hive as a global leader in Bitcoin mining and next gen digital infrastructure. So those were the main updates for this Hive press release. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And again, I'll put the full link in the description of this video. And this next company is a newcomer to the Bitcoin mining industry. This is American Bitcoin Mining Corporation, ticker symbol ABTC. They just started trading on the NASDAQ this past week. I'm going to go over some of the quotes and then some highlights of the business. The first quote is by Eric Trump, one of the co founders of the company. He said, "Today, American Bitcoin becomes a public vehicle for investors seeking scalable, singular exposure to the defining asset class of our time." Eric Trump, co founder and chief strategy officer of American Bitcoin. Our NASDAQ debut marks a historical milestone in bringing Bitcoin into the core of U.S. capital markets and advancing our mission to make America the undisputed leader of the global Bitcoin economy. The next quote is from one of the largest shareholders of the company. This would be Donald Trump Jr. He said, "American Bitcoin embodies the values that define American strength, freedom, transparency, and independence," Donald Trump Jr. says, stockholder of American Bitcoin. "With our NASDAQ listing, we are elevating this mission onto the global stage, giving investors a vehicle we believe will strengthen the U.S. financial system and help build a more resilient national economy." The next quote is going to be from the CEO of Hut 8. This is by Asher Genote. He said, "With the backing of the public markets, we believe American Bitcoin is now positioned to set the standard in Bitcoin accumulation," said Asher Genote, executive chairman of American Bitcoin and CEO of Hut 8. And this specific company, they did launch American Bitcoin in 2025 as a majority owned subsidiary of Hut 8. By combining Bitcoin mining, opportunistic market purchases, and the backing of Hut 8's energy and digital infrastructure, we have created a vehicle to drive rapid, efficient Bitcoin per share growth. So, those are some of the quotes I wanted to share with you. Now, let me get into one of the highlights for this specific press release. It is a mandate, a singular focus on a Bitcoin accumulation. American Bitcoin's objective is to maximize Bitcoin per share through rapid, efficient Bitcoin accumulation. The next highlight for the company is their business model. It is a multi-lever accumulation strategy. So, American Bitcoin employs a differentiated dual accumulation strategy that integrates self mining operations and opportunistic Bitcoin purchases, which provides the flexibility to respond to the market conditions and focus on maximizing return on invested capital. Mining at significant discount to market price enforces a structural cost advantage over accumulation vehicles without integrated mining operations. And the last update is their operating leverage, infrastructure access, and cost efficiency. Through its partnership with Hut 8, American Bitcoin monetizes next generation ASICs technology and leverages Hut 8's scaled colocation infrastructure platform to mine Bitcoin without the need to commit significant capital to build and operate proprietary data centers. Shared resources are designated to deliver SG&A efficiency, allowing a greater share of capital allocated towards scaling exahash and increasing Bitcoin reserves. So, again, great to see that they have disclosed their strategy. And I did put out a pretty long debrief of the first day that they were actually on the market. And they did share quite a bit in various SEC filings, including their overall operating hash rate that they already have operating at 4 of Hut 8's data centers. So definitely take a look at that video. I will put it at the end of this one. All right, and that about wraps up for me, folks. I hope you enjoyed this quick sector update of the Bitcoin mining stocks. If you did consider giving this video a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts about the sector. Do you think we're going to see a price appreciation of the sector, or will we continue to see a downward trend? Again, love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. And with all that said, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Keep calm, hash on, and I'll see you on the next one.